Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Solve Ruled podcast. I am your host, Hannah Holden. This week, I want to talk about the difference between living a life where your fear is pushing you versus your desire pulling you. And the name of this episode is kind of a play off of a quote I really love by Michael Bernard Beckwith. And the quote is, "Your pain pushes you until the vision pulls you," or pain pushes you until the vision pulls you. And what I really think we're talking about here is a lot of times that pain, and it could be different in different situations, but a lot of times what we're talking about is fear is pushing us to do something or to make something happen, but we haven't been able to tap into a vision that wants to pull us or really being led by our desires. We're more, what's the word I want to use here? We're more beholden to our fears than we are, freed by our desires. And really what inspired this episode this week is that I was working with a coaching client this week, and I asked him what was driving him in a certain situation. And his answer kind of surprised me. His answer was that I don't want to lose. I don't want to be, I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, but I don't want to lose was the gist of it. And I thought that was so interesting because he didn't say, I want to win. He said, I don't want to lose. And I just think about how often we do this. We almost set the goal around avoiding a negative outcome. And I think there's so many areas where we do this. I've heard people do this and say these things. I think I've heard people say, I don't want to be broke anymore. I don't want to be overweight anymore. I don't want to be failing anymore. I don't want to feel like I'm failing. But those are genuine feelings. I think it's just part of being human that we would have those feelings. But it is interesting to think about how we set our goal around what we don't want, not what we do want. We set our goal around what we're afraid will happen, not a goal around of what we wish would happen. And this is subtle, but I really believe it has the power to change the outcome in a lot of situations in our lives. A couple of quotes that I think really highlight what I'm trying to say here. And one of them is a quote, "Worry is prayer for the things you don't want." Any fellow worriers here? I don't think I'm really as much of a worrier anymore, but I think I used to be a big worrier. And so how this ties into what I'm talking about here is if you're worrying about losing or you're worrying about not having enough money, being broke, worrying about the way that you look, worrying about failing, kind of worrying about the negative outcome, it's a prayer for something that you don't want because you're putting your energy into the side of what you don't want, not the side of what you do want. Another quote that I think really ties in here is that what you focus on expands. So if you are focused on not losing, I don't want to lose, I don't want to lose, I don't want to lose, the energy and emphasis is still on lose. If you are focused on, I don't want to be broke, I don't want to be broke, I don't want to be broke, I don't want to be broke anymore, the energy is still on broke. If you're putting energy into, I don't want to be overweight, I don't want to be overweight, I don't want to be overweight, the energy is still on overweight. If you say, I don't want to fail, I don't want to fail, I don't want to fail, the energy is still on failure. I hope you get where I'm going with this. If you change those, what if you change, I don't want to lose to I want to win? There's a shift there. Now the energy is on win, win, win. I want to win, win, win. If you shift from I don't want to be broke to I want to be wealthy, the emphasis is on wealthy, wealthy, wealthy. If you said, I don't want to be overweight, but you switch to, I want to be healthy, healthy, healthy. Energy and emphasis on healthy. Where your energy goes, where your focus goes, where your energy goes, that's what's going to expand in your life. This is subtle, but I think that as I'm saying it, I know that I've been guilty of doing this. I know that I do this sometimes. I actually think that in my early 30s, well, frankly, late 20s, early 30s, I was still living this way where I think I was really driven by fear. It was a fear pushing in my life. It wasn't my desires pulling me. So I think a lot of times it was the fear for me, the fear of failure, the fear of regret, fear of not living up to my standards or expectations for myself. I think in my career, it was a lot about fear of just not maximizing my potential, not mattering, not being someone, not having a purpose, not contributing in a meaningful way. But it was on the negative. It was the fear of what could go wrong, the fear of something not coming to fruition, the fear of not being who I was meant to be, the fear of not figuring it out. And it was just a lot of fear. And even though I didn't quite realize that at the time, I didn't really realize that I was being, pushed by fear. I kind of realized it later when I found that shift into really figuring out what my desires were. And those desires began to pull me along. And there really is a very different energy to it, because over the years when I was pushed more by my fear, it took a lot of energy. It took a lot of energy to force myself to do things when I was really just doing it to avoid a negative income. So maybe it's something like, or a negative outcome. Maybe it's something like you're pushing yourself to do something because you're afraid if you don't do it that you'll lose the job, or you'll lose the relationship, or people won't respect you, or whatever possible negative outcome is. But anytime your energy is being put on a negative outcome that you're trying to prevent from happening, a lot of times that just becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Back to that whole quote, worry is prayer for the things you don't want. So instead, if you can put your energy into figuring out what your desires are and fueling your desires, spending time with your desires, clarifying those desires, updating your desires when they change, then you really have somewhere to go. You have somewhere to go in the future. Back to my examples. I want to win. I want to be wealthy. I want to be healthy. I want to be successful. Whatever those desires are in your life, how can you put your energy there versus what you don't want to happen? I think that's actually all I have for for this episode. I was just pausing to see, is there anything else that I would say here? I don't think so. I think it's just short and sweet today. And I hope that you took something from this on how you can go from your fear pushing you to your desires pulling you. Thank you.